What's up, everybody? So, I wanted to make a video talking about a concept that so many people know a little bit about, but I see it performed in a very inefficient and ineffective way. And that is using our creator power within this matrix, within this web that we are perceiving. Using our creator power to manifest in physical reality from a standpoint of feeling. So I want to point out something. It's a misunderstood notion, mostly because of that movie The Secret, where the whole thinking, and maybe it was just they explained it 20 years ago in a way that was digestible to the human population then. So I just wanted to upgrade our understanding of what it really means to create with intention. And it comes down to our feeling state. So if we are saying, I want to be rich, that usually when someone says that comes from a feeling of lack. The statement, I want to be rich, usually comes if you feel poor. And so you can see that if you desire, I want to be rich, if you think about being rich, you're really reinforcing the feeling state of poverty. And this goes for anything. I want a fancy car. It goes from the feeling state of you actually trusting and knowing that you're dissatisfied with your current condition of vehicle. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that this is happening a lot, and it's a very easy switch. But just first, awareness is key here. If you are reaching for desired outcomes, thinking that you are intending on them, really check to see that you are not actually verifying the opposite of that. Okay, so if you're reaching for something, I want love. Well, usually when that statement, and I know I'm speaking spells into existence here, but I'm just speaking from observation. If you say, I want love, I want someone to love me, that statement alone is, and I know I'm just giving example after example, that statement alone is verifying your feeling state that you are not loved, that you are not worthy of love, that you do not have love. And so remember that this is an energetic universe, and our remote control. What's it like to be a weirdo? Well, Marty Meyer, I should actually look at these. Weird is actually from the Scottish term that means fate or personal destiny. So being weird is perfectly on point with our current reality. And you made me lose my thought. I want love. I want someone to love me, right? So you guys get that. So I'm just using really simple dialogue here so that you understand when you're reaching for something, you're not actually intending it if actually what you're doing is verifying the opposite. So from my standpoint, I'm making this video because if many people can watch this and see like, oh wow, I thought I've been intending things, but I've actually just been verifying that I believe that, I'm a loser. If I'm trying to be the winner and I want to be the winner, I'm really just verifying to myself that I'm a loser, which is going to keep me in a reality that is energetically tuned to myself being a loser. So check yourself. And the way that you do that is, like, this is actually where the matrix control comes in. When we can actually look into reality and realize that everything out there isn't as real as the perception of it happening in here. So there is a matrix happening. The matrix is happening because your sensations are bringing in information into your skull, let's call it, and if we want to go multidimensional, it's going in and our consciousness is calibrating it. And if we are perceiving it in certain ways, like if we're perceiving our car and being like, this car sucks, I want a new car, really you're just perceiving a sucky car. And so the way to control the matrix is to see things differently. It's very easy. You perceive things differently. You make a choice to see things the way that you want them to be. And so even if the matrix is showing up, and this is a practice, but it's not so difficult to master. It's a practice of perceiving things with your eyeballs and then just feeling differently about them than what you're programmed to feel, because your shitty car is probably a dream car to many other people, especially 90% of the people in the planet who don't even have a car, you know? So it's all a matter of perception, and the caveat, the caveat, the right word? The whole thing here is that in order to be in a different reality, you have to be tuned to that reality. And so as you get good at this practice, as you get good at seeing things in the brightest possible way that you have, in the greatest vision possible, then everything in your reality turns to that great vision. Now, the catch here is that things might not even change. It's just your perception of it. And then my question to you is, does it matter? Is your perception actually changing reality? And yes, is the answer to that question, because how you perceive things is actually more real than this quote reality itself, because all you're really sensing is what's happening in here. And the great thing about this is that rich people are rich in here before they attain the perceived richness in physical reality. So the only way to get that better car, the only way to receive love, the only way to be wealthy is to be wealthy, to be deserving of love, to be the type of person that drives that better car, if that's what you want. And the thing is, we can all have what we want, right? Not everyone wants to drive a Ferrari. Some of us want to just sit next to a waterfall all day long. Okay. That's one thing. Next thing. What we see, so this is why we can actually define whatever we see. Because the things that we judge, the good and the bad, the hot and the cold, the right and the wrong, those are actually also just made up by us, right? So if you think about hot and cold, those are actually the same. They are different aspects of the same thing. If you look at a temperature scale, thermometer, I almost forgot that word. If you look at the thermometer, there's nowhere that you can tell me this is where hot ends and cold begins, right? So the word hot and the word cold are subjective to your perception, your experience. You get to label that, right? What's hot to you is going to be cold to somebody else. And what's hot to a human might be cold to a fish. Okay? So hot and cold are actually different aspects of the same thing. Now here's where things get interesting, because so that means that you can look at anything and see the spectrum according to how you want. And this gets interesting when you look at two people arguing, because really when you argue with somebody, you're trying to prove that person wrong. But if someone's saying, hey, this is hot, and you're saying, no, it's not hot, it's cold, this is an impossible conversation to solve. It's impossible. Because if you're trying to prove somebody else wrong, it would also mean that you are wrong. Because they're saying the same aspect, they're saying the same thing as you are, right? It goes, I'm reaching here and I could actually spend another 20 minutes explaining, but I just kind of proved that hot and cold were the same thing. So whether we should be afraid of COVID or not be afraid of COVID are also the same thing. And if we're arguing and bickering with each other, it's a kind of a pointless discussion. And really the only way that an argument is beneficial is if the intention is to find out how the other person is saying the same thing you are. It's to find out how hot is the same thing as cold. It's to find out what the temperature, that word temperature, is. If one person's screaming hot and one person's screaming cold, how do you find out what the temperature is? How do we find out what the same thing is, the sameness, the oneness? So I've actually found it impossible to argue with anybody for like the last at least 5 years. And those are two things I just wanted to point out in this live. That if you missed the beginning, I was talking about... I actually forget what I was talking about. Well, I'll get back to what I started with, but what I ended with was that everything in duality, everything are aspects of the same thing, okay? Even male, female, hot, cold. There is no such thing as a delineation. There's a whole bunch of things in between, but they're all the same thing. I was talking about arguing. No, that's what I started. That's what I ended with. I started talking about manifesting. Okay, so remember, so that ties back into the first thing I was talking about. When you look out into reality, when you think this sucks, I want something better, realize that sucking and better are the same thing. Okay, and so just harmonizing in your highest state possible, looking at things with your greatest vision is going to give you the strongest launch pad to launch into the direction where you can be the best you. And that's really, it all comes down to harmony. Happiness is harmony. Everything is about vibration. And so when you look at emotions, when you look at sounds, okay, take the keys on the keyboard. When you hit the key on the keyboard, if you actually are into the science of cymatics, and even Pythagoras, who developed like this whole geometry and the solfeggio frequencies that a lot of our musical instruments are based on, our sounds have perfect geometry. They're in harmony. If you play a sound that's in between the tunes, so if you use like a guitar and you're not good at it, or if you use some musical instrument and you play a sound in between the tunes, there's actually people that have the synesthesia, the ability to see sounds, and they will explain to you that perfect harmony looks like perfect geometrical shapes, and inharmonious harmonies, the tones that aren't really tones that actually make us feel bad, are distorted figures. It looks like the figures are being hurt. And so you can actually see this if you just YouTube cymatics, cymatics. But there's actually people that have this sensation. Kanye West is actually one of them. I learned that from MTV Cribs. The first painting he ever painted was he painted what sound looks like to him. Anyways, so our feeling state is all about harmony, happiness, sadness. The things that make us feel bad is in harmony. The things that make us feel good is harmony. So when you look out into reality, the key is to just be harmonious with everything, and that is the practice of life. Because as we get harmonious with everything, then we can start vibrating together. When we start vibrating together, we can start tuning together. And if you look at the prophecies, if you look at us going from the Piscean to the Aquarian age, if you look at the ending of the Mayan calendar, if you look at the shifts in the yugas in the Hindu calendars, what the next phase, if you look at third density to fourth density and the law of one, all of the prophecies, all of the teachings, all of the channelings talk about humanity coming into a coexistence, a cohesiveness. That is the next stage of the human evolution. How does that happen? Harmony. Okay, imagine us all like radio signals. We all tune to the same frequency. We are all the most harmonious selves. Then we will match up in frequency, because geometry is geometry. So if we are all geometrically harmonious, frequency-wise, emotions are our are controllers of that, right? Emotion is energy in motion. Then we'll all start to tune in together. And this internet thing is do I want to say that? It's a start. I almost said it was a poor representation, just so you know. And I backpedaled from that because it's actually a stepping stone. See, I changed my perception on the internet. It's a stepping stone to the real deal, where we're all tuned to the same frequency and my thoughts are your thoughts. Get it? That's not going to happen, though, as long as we're arguing, as long as we are seeing the differences within each other, as long as we're feeling the inharmonies of reality. All we can really do is look at the harmonies. How do I match with this? So that can be our lifelong practice, or it can be our daily practice. Everything that we see, the question arises, how can I match myself to this? How can I look at Facebook? And even I'm saying people shouldn't argue. When I see people arguing, I'm thinking, how can I match myself in this? When I see people complaining, I'm like, how can I match myself to this? How can I love this? How can I appreciate this? Hey, Seema, they want me to say hi to you.
Hi.
She said hi. All right. Those are some random thoughts. Adios.